So the journal was established in 2014 under the title International Studies in Widening Participation, and in 2021 we reviewed the focus and scope of the journal and had a name change to Access Critical Explorations of Equity in Higher Education. So I'm the journal manager, and I will sort of be sharing some information about the journal on behalf of the Executive Editorial Board, and yeah, really pleased to be part of this. So in that first iteration of the journal, we just want to acknowledge the hard work that went into that from Masood Shah, Anna Bennett and Joe Hanley. And so they were located in what was else now PALS, and we're bringing the journal in the enabling and equity practitioner space. So since we reframed the journal with the new title, we've had 3 special issues come out, and also a few different viewpoints that have been published outside of the cycle, and I'll touch on that in a little bit. So as I mentioned, the journal is positioned in the enabling and equity fields within higher education, and the audience has to date largely been within Australia, but so we've had some international issues and contributions, and we're looking to expand this through broadening the editorial board. So beyond the executive editorial board, we have another editorial board, and we're constantly bringing new people into that. And so we really hope to include papers across the globe, including from areas that may have less access to publishing or to academic publishing. So for example, we recently published a viewpoint from a scholar living in Glasgow, and the piece is a reflection on their PhD study from the position of being a refugee from Eritrea. So that's titled Refugees as Questioning Subjects, a critical reflection of PhD fieldwork involving refugees, and I'd encourage you to read that one. Important aspect, or something that is really central for the executive editorial team and the broader community around Access, is the pedagogical approach to editing and publishing. So we really aim to support early career researchers and equity practitioners to develop capacity for writing and publishing in journals, and to have their voices then entering into the field and making those contributions that are often bringing a different view or lens to issues that are dealt with in academia. So we're aiming to publish, as I mentioned, we aim to publish viewpoints outside of the issue cycle, and this allows for more immediate, more sort of a shorter time frame between writing and publication. However, the peer review and editorial processes mean that there is still time to pull that together. So I think that idea of having the immediate access is balanced with the idea of rigour and peer review, and it's something that we're constantly working with. And I think also something to note there is the labour behind publishing and how often that is on top of people's existing workloads, and we're really conscious of supporting the people who give us so much of their time, like reviewers, the editors, the authors. So I think sometimes those processes are longer than we would hope, but the idea of having that option to publish viewpoints outside of the issue cycle, we're hoping to kind of increase that immediacy of in really important conversations, especially if they're very topical. But I think that having an open journal platform has really helped that pedagogical approach, and it just means that we're able to look at different forms of writing, and really, I guess, try and expand whose voices are being published. And that's definitely something we're really focused on in the new iteration. Lots of different ways that the community around the journal has been built, or around a particular issue. I think it's definitely something we're still working to develop as the journal is expanding its scope, but certainly around those practitioner and enabling practitioner educator communities, it's been an important vehicle for conversations and research explorations. But I have an example from 2 of my colleagues who wrote into the first issue in Access together which we called Writing the Field of Equity, and essentially that first issue was kind of an extended editorial to launch the new iteration and to invite people to sort of engage with the journal in this new form. But Matt and Louis wrote a piece together, and it included a lot of personal reflection, and I think both of them have spoken about it as really strengthening and establishing their collaborative relationship. So I think something that is talked about a lot within CEHE, the Centre of Excellence for Equity in Higher Education, is the idea of writing as a method of inquiry. And I think through that writing process itself, and then developing it for publication, that was an important tool of collaboration. So I think that's a kind of essential element of the journal that we'd be really trying to continue. Thinking about the initial, so when Access was the International Studies in Widening Participation, and part of what happened with the program of that journal was that the National Writing Program for Equity Practitioners had an element where participants were invited to write an article for a special issue that was the writing program special issue. So that process, again, that comes back to the idea of the pedagogical editorial process, and that it extended the program almost by another year by the time people developed their papers with their mentors, and then went through working with the editorial team to publication. So it was a really cool opportunity, I suppose. And that program, the writing program, has now been developed into a course within the Graduate Certificate in Professional Equity and Inclusion that CEHE has just started this year. And so that link with the journal is still maintained in this new course, and I think that will be a way that students can begin to publish or have a sort of foray into academic publishing in quite a supported environment. Another element, sort of thinking about building community and building an identity for the journal, is the way in the new iteration we've worked with local and international artists to kind of have an aesthetic for each issue that reflects the content of the special issue, whether it's extremely literally or not. And so that's something that I've personally been really excited about, and I think it also reflects our aims with the journal to bring in different forms of expression. So in some of the issues we've published comic strips and poems, so really thinking about what is academic publishing, what is the conventions of writing, where do they need to be challenged sometimes. But I think there's been a bit of a sense of pride around the visual element of the journal as well, and I think that's something we'd hope to use as a bit of a vehicle for building that broader community around the journal. Yeah, so we have an open call for viewpoint submissions. So if you go to the Access Journal site, you'll see kind of instructions for, you can send us an email, or you can actually apply through the journal to either submit an article or to submit a paper for that open publishing cycle outside of a sort of special issue cycle. But if people are interested in pulling together a special issue or to contributing, then they're absolutely most welcome to get in touch, and that would be really exciting. We've fairly recently launched this 2023 special issue, and we'll probably put that up on screen, so that's available through the site and also in hard copy. And so we if you sign up as a registered user, then you'll receive updates from us as well. So we just welcome anyone to get in touch or follow us on Twitter. Sort of forward planning quite a way ahead is really important. I think the time that it takes for each issue is quite extensive, and so having sort of a pipeline is something we will hopefully have. But I think, so I'd say that sort of forward planning and having a really strong editorial group and just acknowledging the administrative load. In terms of the OJS site, I think I now feel quite confident using it, but I wish that I had learnt more about, guess, the workflow within the site, and I think that helps to support the editorial team as well once there's sort of that clearer process. So I'd say if you're wanting to do it, sort of get familiar with what the publishing tool can do for the team, but also don't necessarily be controlled by that either. I think sometimes we sort of go around things when it doesn't quite work for us. I think having that balance is important. But yeah, I'm sure that the executive editorial team from Access would be really happy to talk to anyone if they were thinking of embarking on a journal.